philosophy across the country and abroad. Today, I offer my gratitude to all the senior professors that I can see as to be associated with us on this Sunday webinar. Today, we have a very beautiful topic, that is Nagarjuna'S Doctrine of Sunyata. Today, we have invited Dr. Jayanti Priyadarshini Sahoo, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Philosophy, Janak Devi Memorial College, New Delhi, to explore her thinking on it. Dr. Jayanti Priyadarshini Sahoo is a senior teacher in philosophy in the country, who has more than 22 years of teaching experience in UG and PG level. Today, Dr. Anupam Bhattacharya was our speaker, but though she denied to talk due to some urgent work, Dr. Jayanti Sahoo was contacted by our Albani, Professor Pratitya Das, and Dr. Jayanti agreed to talk on this topic on this Sunday webinar. I welcome Dr. Jayanti to accept our invitation to be the speaker of today's webinar. But before inviting Dr. Jayanti Priyadarshini Sahoo to speak on this scheduled topic, let me share some of her academic pursuits. Dr. Jayanti has a very brilliant academic career throughout. She did her master's in philosophy with first position from Utkal University. Then she moved to JNU for pursuing doctoral study, and she is there for more than 2 decades. Dr. Jayanti is associated with a number of co-curricular activities like Deputy Coordinator NCWB, Coordinator Add-on Course, Coordinator Soft Dance, Member Academic Excellence Committee, General Secretary, Center for Career Opportunity, Career Counseling and Skill Development. Dr. Jayanti has presented many papers and published in different national and international reputed journals. I don't want to explore all the things. Dr. Jayanti, to her credit, has published a book on man, alienation and freedom. Dr. Jayanti has also completed an ICPR project under the theme Health, Happiness and Well-being, a journey through yoga. Dr. Jayanti is associated with many philosophical forums in Odisha, in our country and outside. I don't have time to reflect on them because of the paucity of time. Simply, I welcome Dr. Jayanti to be with us. On this occasion, I welcome our Albani and host, Professor Pratitya Das. I welcome Dr. K. Umnan Rao and our regular moderator to be with us. With this, once again, I offer my gratitude to all the teachers of philosophy across the country and abroad to be with us, and I offer my welcome to Jayanti and request her to start her speak on the scheduled topic, Nagarjuna'S Doctrine of Sunyata. Over to Jayanti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Am I audible?
Yes, clearly audible.
Namaskaram to all. My heartfelt gratitude regards to all my teachers, mentors, and everyone present here. My best wishes to all the students. First of all, I would like to give my sincere thanks to Professor P.K. Das for giving me the opportunity to present my views on Doctrine of Sunyata in Nagarjun's philosophy. Before that, I must congratulate the philosophy family for holding the webinars on important philosophical topics on a regular basis. My heartfelt thanks to Professor Ranjit Ghosh, Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana, the coordinator of the program, and Dr. K.M. Narayan Rao, the moderator of the program, for the valuable feedback and the support. So to start with the presentation, I'll have a PPT presentation. I'll begin with the famous statement of Buddha, because Buddhism is very, all the Indian philosophical schools I like for various reasons. So I'll begin with a statement, famous statement of Buddha, which is being practiced within earlier Buddhism as well as later Buddhism. So that is, ya vikhyava pratitya samutpadam pasyati, sa buddham pasyati, ya buddham pasyati, sa dhamam pasyati. So जो pratitya samutpad को जानता है वो बुद्धा, what is enlightenment in Buddhism, also knows. And whosoever knows the Buddha and he knows the Dhamma, that means the moral principles of Buddha. So saying this, I'll begin with my presentation and through PPT. So just allow me to do that.
Madam, a little bit loud.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't see it. So now it's fine.
And loud.
Sir, it's visible now.
Visible, visible.
And am I audible? Okay. So to begin with that, why do we talk about Sunyata? What is so important about the Doctrine of Sunyata? For many reasons, I have chosen this topic, because and to know what Sunyata is all about, so we have to know our intellectual tradition, Indian intellectual traditions. So as we see that the contemporary world is undergoing massive stress and anxiety, human lives are uncertain, crime and violence increasing day by day. Ideological, religious differences are being created through politics. Young generations are undergoing so much of stress and anxiety. They are directionless. In this context, it is our duty and responsibility to provide them holistic knowledge which will help them to rebuild their thought process. Indian philosophy is an amalgamation of many religious beliefs, culture, traditions, and practices. In Indian philosophy, there is an attempt to understand and experience reality in various ways. The concept of unity in diversity can be traced back to the statement of Rig Veda, Ekam Sad Vipra Bhuda Vadanti. The reality is one and interpreted in many ways. And this diversity also we find in Nagarjun's philosophy, when he speaks about the fourfold logic, Chatuskoti Vinirmuktam Sunyatam, that we'll discuss when we'll come to Nagarjuna. There is an attempt by the Rishi-centered traditions to understand reality and establish unity and peace through the spiritual quest. If we go by historical and deep philosophical analysis, we can see diversity is celebrated, preserved, and valued, which gives space, flexibility, and create interrelatedness. Thus, one can say that the Vedic pluralism is one of the foundational contributions of the whole world. Charvak, Jainism, Buddhism, whether it is earlier or later Buddhism, Sankhya Yoga, Mimamsa Vedanta, flourish their philosophy either by accepting the Shruti tradition or by rejecting its authority. Different philosophical understanding is not a threat, rather constitutes oneness for the welfare of the society. This reminds me of Vedic idea of Bahujan Hitai and Bahujan Sukhai. Also the notion of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, plurality in India is celebrated. Indian intellectual traditions are knowledge-centered traditions. Its philosophy is rich and complex. In this context, it is essential to understand the doctrine of Sunyata and Nagarjuna's philosophy. In Nagarjuna's philosophy, as many of you know, that Nagarjuna belongs to the later Buddhist traditions, that is the Madhyamik philosophy. Then you find basically in India we speaks about 4 schools within within Buddhism, that is the Hinayan sect and Mahayan sect. Under Hinayan we talk about Sautantric school and Vaivasik school, and in Mahayan we speaks about the 2 traditions, 2 schools, that is Madhyamik Buddhism or Sunyavad theory, and the Yogachar and the Vigyanvad theory. So as we know that the period of Nagarjuna is 150 to 50 CE. Born in South India, Hindu Brahmin family, become a Buddhist. Famous for his work Fundamental Verses, The Middle Way. Famous for his work Mula Madhyamik Karika, Vigraha Vibhartani, Ratnavali. There are many texts written by Sunyata Satpati, or all these texts are being written by Nagarjuna, and he is a later Buddhist scholar. And therefore, basically, when we talk about any philosophical systems in India, so we have to trace it that we have to see the historical development and the social conditions, and from which that the philosophical systems emerge. And if we take Nagarjuna into account, then we find that 4 major philosophical traditions already were there, and that is the rise of Madhyamik Buddhism, that is Brahminism. When I said Brahminism, that it includes the earlier Vedas and the later Vedas, that is the Karmakanda theory and the Gyan theory, that is Upanishad and Vedanta. Then the materialism of Charvak, or we can trace materialism, I generally trace materialism from the Vedic period. And then materialism of Charvak and Ajivikas and Jainism, early Buddhism. So these are the traditions, were already established traditions were there. And Nagarjuna, when we see that as T.R.V. Murthy in his book, Buddhist Conception of Nirvana, when he speaks about, he said that there are 2 major traditions in India. One is that Atma tradition and one is that Anatma tradition. One is substance views and one is the substance-less views. So what is substance view? When we talk about substance views, means something we accept the truth in terms of eternality, in terms of permanence, in terms of everlasting, and something which is indestructible and which is all time to come. So that is a kind of, and something when we talk about anatma, means there is no, we cannot say no atma, so not, there is no atma doesn't exist, but it is a kind of non-self, it is the kind of complementary class, which I understood is not a complete rejection of the theory of the self, but not in terms of the eternality. So that is a kind of essencelessness they don't talk about. So to understand Sunyata, these are the things which is very important to understand, the philosophical background under which this system emerged and the Sunyavad theory developed, and that is very important. And then coming back to the, actually my work is on Mula Madhyamik Karika, so that is the text which I have taken to discuss the Sunyata theory. So Mula Madhyamik Karika is the most seminal philosophical text of Nagarjuna. Scholars like Buddha Palita, Bhava Vivek and Chandrakirti wrote commentaries on this text. Madhyamik is not a mystical doctrine concerned with abstract and otherworldly revelations. The purpose of Madhyamik is simply to understand the phenomena, the things around us, and the situations make up the world of our experience. So that is how it is very important when we talk about philosophy. Generally, there is an understanding amongst the young generation that philosophy is something which is abstract, which has no use, and which is not true. When we talk about philosophy as a dynamic subject, it always keeps on changing, taking the social and individual problems into account. Here also the tradition is something we should differentiate between Western philosophy and Indian philosophy, the philosophy and darshan. So darshan is a experiential, which is something which is based on the practice, and so that is the reason why Madhyamik philosophy, the doctrine of Sunyata, is also not an abstract and otherworldly things which you cannot understand or experience. The Nagarjuna is saying something, he is talking about two kinds of truth. If we go by the text, there are two kinds of truth Nagarjuna is speaking about. One is Samriti Satya and one is Paramartha Satya. That is also in the context of Sunyata. So that Samriti Satya is something relative truth, that is the world of phenomena. How do you experience? How do you analyze? And the absolute truth, when we talk about the Paramartha Satya, is something which is noumena, or something how it exists in terms of the mental construct. The Mula Madhyamik Karika is one of the relatively few works of Indian Buddhism that has survived in the original Sanskrit. The text is important for various reasons, and all these are my interpretations. You may agree or differ from that. Emphasis on how diversity is being celebrated, nurtured, and cherished by the Indian mind. A proper methodology has been introduced to understand the text. That is the prasanga method of deconstruction. अगर आपको सुन्याता को समझना है या नागार्जुन को समझना है, तो पहला बेसिक चीज जो है उनका जो डायलेक्टिकल मेथड, प्रसंग मेथड जिसको बोला जाता है, सो यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वेरी केयरफुली, दैट व्हाट इज दैट मेथड. इफ वी गो बाय द that what is that dialectics he is talking about, so he is saying that dialectics, as you know, there is a contradiction and there is a sublimation. We talk about being, non-being, and becoming. So these are the kind of, and here the dialectical method of Nagarjuna is based on the fourfold logic. So that fourfold logic is something, this is a problem of Abhyakrita problem, which is indescribable, something which you cannot describe in terms of language, but you have to understand this reality beyond the kind of logic, and then that is called the pragya, or the highest knowledge. So there are four alternatives, or tetralemma, or what you can call quadrilemma logic as developed by postmodernism. So you find there are fourfold logic developed by Nagarjuna. One is that a positive thesis, and the second one is that negative counter thesis, and the third one is the conjunctive affirmation of the both, and P and not P, and the fourth one is the disjunctive denial of the first two, or neither nor logic. So, and then Nagarjuna is trying to say, in this context, Nagarjuna has given a beautiful slok is there. Sunyamiti navaktavyam or sunyamiti bhav bhavet ubhayam nabhayam cheti pragyam pratyartham tu kathyate. Sunyamiti navaktavyam, something which exists. I do not say something which exists. So that means if you see that what is that existence, अगर आप historical developments देखेंगे, पहले जो आत्मावाद था उपनिषद में, something which exists in terms of permanence, so eternality. So Nagarjuna is saying, I am not saying that a thing exists, I am not saying a thing doesn't exist, which the Charvakya say that Atma doesn't exist. I am not saying that both exist and not exist, as you find in case of Jainism, Syadvad and Syadasti and Syadnasti. So, and I'm also not saying neither nor logic. That is, if you go back to earlier Buddhism, then you find that Buddha को जब भी कोई metaphysical questions पूछा गया था, Buddha maintained a silence, and that silence leads to a different kinds of interpretation, and that it neither eternalism nor nihilism. So that is a neither nor logic. Buddha also, Nagarjuna belongs to that tradition. He criticized the earlier Buddhism for their narrow explanation about the reality, and that is what Sunyata is. So he is saying Sunyam iti nabhaktavyam. I cannot say that a thing exists. I cannot say that a thing asunyam iti bhav bhavet. I am not also not saying a thing doesn't exist. Ubhayam nabhayam cheti. Ubhayam means both is not there, and nabhaya, that also I am not saying. So in the empirical level, one way of understanding that when he talks about Samriti Satya and the Paramartha Satya, one way of understanding that in the empirical reality can be understood through the logical discourse. But then when we talk about a kind of Paramartha Satya or absolute reality, so you have to transcend. Sunyamiti navaktavyam asunyamiti bhavet ubhayam nabhayam cheti pragyam pratyartham tu kathyate. So that means you can transcend the logical state, and maybe you can generate a state of faith, and there you can establish that something which is pragya, or that is called pratitya samutpad, that is called nirvan, that is called nisvabhyata. Interchangeably use Sunyata, it is essential to understand nisvabhyata, and the Swabhav, he is criticizing the essence theory. And then you have to understand Sunyata is something which is bodhisattvahood. Sunyata is something which is what you call pratitya samutpada. So because that is the central theory in earlier Buddhism and later Buddhism. Only difference is that one is a narrow explanation of pratitya samutpada theory, and one is a kind of liberal or a kind of broader explanation to that theory. So that is what is important to understand the dialectics of Nagarjuna. And for me, Nagarjuna is an analyzer. I will not say Nagarjuna is carrying any position, nor like Charvak, nor like any earlier Buddhist, nor like Vedanta or Mimamsa, whosoever, that talking about a kind of position or a kind of ideology. So I'll say that I'll go with, in fact, Professor G.C. Nayak, when he spoke about Nagarjuna Madhyamik Buddhism, he said that we can see that ism, that maybe Sunyata is a technique to get rid of all sort of isms. And the problem of this world is a problem of identifying yourself with a particular ism. Maybe you can have multiple truths, and there maybe the Nagarjunian explanation is very close to the Prasanga method, is very close to the method of dialectics. So because Nagarjuna himself says in Vigraha Vivartane that I do not have a thesis to give. So even also if you go by the earlier Buddhism, there also you find a kind of Buddha said Buddha means the enlightened person. Buddha was a title given to Buddha. So a person who has got the enlightenment. And if you take that, Buddha said apodipo bhava. So you look back to your own understanding of the reality. So there is nothing called Buddha. If you meet Buddha, then you kill Buddha. So that kind of sort of things. Nagarjuna also said that I do not have, the purpose of my dialectic is to disprove the views advanced by others, not to prove any view of my own. So I do not have any views. He who advances a view must necessarily prove it to others whom he wants to convince. Nagarjuna states clearly in his Vigraha Vivartane that no one can find fault with me because I do not have a thesis to give. And that is how in that context he said that Yadi kachana pratigya syana me tataeva bhave dosa nasti cha mama pratigya tasman na eva me asti dosa. So I do not have a thesis to give. Pratigya means the thesis which I have to prove, and you must have gone through fivefold logic. So pratigya is one of the category. So logical category. So if I have a thesis to give, then you can find fault with me, but I do not have a thesis to give. So there you cannot find a fault with me. So that is a kind of, so in that case, we can take Nagarjuna as simply an analyzer. So then I found that some kind of implicit metaphysics, which also T.R.V. Murthy says that there is a kind of Advaita, not Advaitavada, but is there some kind of culmination of metaphysics, epistemology, logic, and the values, and also the language. It is an integrated approach you find through the concept of Sunyata, autonomy of the individual and the group, and practice of cultural relativism is very much there, and that there I will go by Tversky's analysis of Sunyata theory. And then the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a practice to achieve the state of Bodhisattva mode. But the problem arises that Nagarjuna's concept of Sunyata has been misinterpreted or understood as Nagarjuna has understood as a nihilist. Sunyabad, when we said that nihilism, nothing is there. And also sometimes as a skeptic and sometimes as an idealist, as I said, that in TRB Murthy, you find that he is read as an idealist and a skeptic by Gedfield and a pragmatist by Kalupahana. So, and as a mystic. So he has been regarded as a critique of logic, as a defender of classical logic and a pioneer of para-consistent logic. He is at times said to be a Vaithandik also, like Professor Bharadwaj said that Nagarjuna is a Vaithandik. Vitanda is a logical category, epistemological category, which is there within the Nyaya epistemology. You find that. So when we talk about Nagarjuna is regarded as a greatest Buddhist philosopher, he is said to be the systematic expounder of Madhyamik philosophy, the philosophy of the middle way. At the heart of the middle way is the concept of Sunyata, perhaps Nagarjuna's single most contribution to the Buddhist thought, as I said already, that he has been interpreted as nihilist. And this type of interpretation raises more problems in understanding the concept properly. Such deep-rooted differences of opinion, it becomes exceedingly difficult, if not possible, to find out what exactly does Sunyata mean. Let us try to understand this difference of opinion through a parable. Suppose a person has committed a crime, and other person who doesn't know whether the first person has committed the crime or not tells, yes, he has committed the crime. And this is what the crime is, because he didn't like that first person, which obviously we, when we go by that theory of the fallacy of ad hominem, so also we have seen that always we have a difference of opinion, and if we do not like that person, we just blame or say that that person has committed the crime. A third person who has seen the actual crime committed by the first person came with the truth that this is what crime is, and crime is committed by the first person. So this is the analysis, so that second and third person make the same assertion about the crime, what happened actually. But we can notice a significant difference made by both of them, whereas one speaks the truth and other speaks lie. This comes under the subject matter of morality. If we have understood the distinction between second and third person, we can understand Madhyamik's claim regarding the reality, who claims everything is Sunya. Sunya actually means it is something which is abhachya, something in terms of Nagarjuna indescribable, which you cannot describe through the language. Or Sunya is something which is interdependence, or something which is coexistence, that there is no essence. In that sense, the reality is Sunya. So this is what Chandrakirti wanted to explain, the distinction between Madhyamik and a skeptic. From the analysis of this parable, it follows that the usefulness of parable no longer holds as soon as the relevant point is established. Thus, one has to understand the doctrine of emptiness with a great caution. So that is what Nagarjuna say. If you do not understand the proper connotation or proper meaning of the term Sunyata and how to use that, then you may ruin your life. So that is how it is important to understand the Sunyata doctrine in a very careful and the significant manner. And as I said, that Sunyata and Pratitya Samutpada, these two things are related, because the problem in earlier Buddhism is that you find a kind of, when they talk about Pratitya Samutpada theory, generally they understood it in terms of the, cycle of the karma. So that means from the second and third noble truth, Buddha developed a theory of dependent origination, something which is relative, conditional, limited, and dependent. And there is a kind of narrow explanation you find, and that is how the earlier Buddhism and later Buddhism, even if the concepts are same, but there is a kind of difference in their practice and method of understanding the reality. So whereas you find the Arhathood and the Pratitya Samutpada theory given by the earlier Buddhism is a narrow understanding to understand the reality, to understand the dukkha. So Pratitya Samutpada is understood to understand the dukkha. There is a desire, and because of that desire there is a suffering, and if you remove the desire, then you can remove the sufferings, and that is how all the things are related to each other. But in case of Nagarjuna philosophy, you find it is a conditionality, and the conditions are codependent, interdependent. And Nagarjuna is saying nowhere the sansar, you have to remain within the suffering. So dukkha can be understood in relation to sukha. So where there is dukkha and there is sukha only. And that is what he said, that na sansarasya nirvanat kinchit asti viseshanam, na nirvanat sansarasya kinchit asti viseshanam. Jahan nirvan hai, wahi suffering hai. So you don't have to. So where there is a desire and there is a desireless state. तो हमेशा क्या होता है, आपको देखेंगे कि अगर there is an approach, you have to deep philosophically analyze and understand the things very carefully. So in case of Arhathood, because Arhathood was a concept of Nirvana developed by Hinayan school, and Madhyamik और शून्यवाद में वो bodhisattvahood चला हो गया था. And what is bodhisattvahood is also the sunyata in terms of essencelessness. So that means you are codependent. You may have your own ideology, but all the ideology can remain together irrespective of their differences. So as a substance exists, cannot exist independently, any object you take into account. So because that is how the Nagarjuna is explaining the phenomenal world, that everything is dependent or codependent. If I have to understood table, I have to understood in relation with the wood or the carpenter. So many other conditions are required. If there is no independent object, so then there is no substance and there is no essence. And in that sense, he is talking about the conditionality or interdependence theory. So whereas the Pratitya Samutpada theory is being narrowly analyzed by the earlier Buddhist, then you find a kind of broader explanation talking about the whole universe, or everybody can become a bodhisattva. Not a single person who practice only sila samadhi and the eightfold paths will get the liberation or nirvana, but everybody can get the nirvana. For that reason, you don't have to leave the sansar. Within the sansar only you can get the nirvana. That is what also he said in the Mula Madhyamik Karika. So that is how the things are being understood, and Sunyata and Pratitya Samutpada theory are correlated. Sunyata means Pratitya Samutpada, conditionality, co-conditionality, and interdependence theory. And for Nagarjuna, as for Buddha in the early text, is not merely sentient beings, they are selfless or non-substantial. All phenomena are without any swabhava, literally own being, self-nature or inherent existence, and thus without any underlying essence. They are empty of being independently existent. Thus the heterodox theories of swabhava circulating at the time were refuted on the basis of the doctrine of early Buddhism. This is so because all things arise always dependently, not by their own power, but by depending on conditions leading to their coming into existence as opposed to being. So the Nagarjuna means by real entity which has the nature of its own, swabhava, which is not produced by causes, which is not dependent on anything else. So that is, he said that sarvam cha yujyate tasya sunyata yasya ujyate, sarvam na yujyate tasya sunyam yasya na yujyate. All is possible when emptiness is possible. And what is emptiness in Nagarjuna's philosophy? That means there is no essence, but there is conditions or co-conditions or coexistence. And in Mula Madhyamik Karika, he has given an explanation to Sunyata theory. What is Sunyata? He said that Sunyata is something which is apara pratyayam santam prapanchir aprapanchitam nirvikalpam ananartham etattasya lakshanam. So what is Sunyata is something which is, it is that experience which cannot be imparted to anyone by another. It has to be realized by everyone for himself. So अगर आपको शून्यता चाहिए तो आपको खुद ढूंढना पड़ेगा. And it is not a kind of narrow ideological sphere which probably we all are living. That something which, if we are a Vedantin, we cannot accept the Buddhist, or if we are a Buddhist, we cannot accept the Jain. So this kind of problems are creating because of that a kind of rigid to a particular essentialistic view, and which is being criticized by the Nagarjuna. That is the most fundamental things which I, to my mind, you may agree with that or disagree. So in Indian tradition, the uniqueness of Indian tradition is कुछ भी आपको पाना है तो आपको practice करना पड़ेगा. It is a discipline. Bodhisattva wood is not a kind of simple thing that one day you get and you will achieve that. You have to do a lot of struggle for that to understand the sunyata or nisvabhyata, where problem lies. And there I find that Nagarjuna is the only model probably as we are looking for the problems to resolve the contemporary problems of the society. So it is non-dual. It is non-dual. Sunyatattva is santam. It is quiescent and unchanged by the empirical mind. That is a calmness. And it is inexpressible by verbalizing mind. Sunyatattva is nirvikalpam. That is transcendent to the discursive thought. So these are the kind of explanation given by the Nagarjuna regarding the Sunyata theory. And Sunyata is not an end in itself. It is only a means to lead up to the prajna, and it respects other views. As I said, that is how he started analyzing, understanding Charvak, Buddhism, Upanishad, Jainism, and early Buddhism. Then he said that you can transcend all this and can have your own understanding of the reality. So that is how the famous, if we go by C.D. Sarma also, sometimes he said, so that never follow a path which has already been traveled, nor follow a path which has not yet been traveled. So this kind of Nagarjunian language to understand is very important. It transcends all sort of egoism and create a state of acceptance and respect to other views. Nagarjuna writes that to know Sunyata, one has to meditate on it. 22 varieties of Sunyata have been discussed inside the text. It is mentioned in the Pragya Paramita Shastra. 6 spiritual qualities are essential for the attainment of Sunyata, such as Dana, Sila, charity, withdrawing from all evil deeds, Kyanti, forbearance, Virya, Dhyana, concentration, Pragya. So Pragya means that is Nisvabhyata, that is Sunyata, that is Pratitya Samutpada. So the wrong use of Sunyata will create problem, and that is what he said, that Vinasayati Didrashta Sunyata Manda Medhasam Sarpoyotha Durgaita Vidya Bha Dusprasadita. So just as a snake caught at the wrong end by a dull-witted fellow only kills him, a magic wrongly employed ruins the magician. In the same manner, Sunyata wrongly used by man who doesn't understand its implication only ruins him. And that is probably we are doing most of the times we are doing. And that's why problems are arising. So it's not that there is a similarity understanding. He also speaks about dukkha. He also speaks about pratitya samutpada. But he always giving a chance to the community or the people that if we want, we can remove the problems from the society. And it is up to us that how you are dealing with the problems. That is what I said, that Sunyata is a technique to get rid of all isms. Sunyata sarva drishtinam praktani saranam jina yesam tu sunyata drishtinam asadhyam bhavaset. So this is a kind of suspension of all isms. And so that is also possible in the knowledge level. In fact, when you are studying or doing, so you should not carry only one views. You can accept multiple views and take the positive things from everyone, and that way you can develop your own understanding of the reality. So Nagarjuna Sunyata philosophy can be better understood in terms of Swabhava. The term Swabhava often translated as inherent existence or own being, and plays a vital role in understanding the Madhyamik philosophy. Sunyata is a substanceless theory without having any essentialistic view. For the reason then, Sunyata can be understood as the absence of Swabhava. Nagarjuna has used Sunya in two senses, Swabhava Sunya and the Prapancha Sunya. When we see the reality from the standpoint of empirical level, Sunya means Swabhava Sunya, devoid of Swabhava, not having any essence, and independent substantial reality of its own. From the standpoint of the absolute Sunya means Prapancha Sunya, or devoid of any kind of verbalization or thought construction and plurality. Nagarjuna claims that when the word Sunya is used in terms of phenomenal reality or with the dharmas element of existence, then it is devoid of independent substantial reality. There is not a single thing in this world which is unconditionally, absolutely real. Everything is related to, contingent upon, and conditioned by something else, and that is what he has written in the Madhyamik Shastra. Madhyamik Shastra. Nagarjuna makes a significant use of the earlier Buddhist doctrine of dependent origination to prove the emptiness or voidness of the things. So something I just would like to say, what is the difference between the Pratitya Samutpada theory in earlier Buddhism and later Buddhism, which I understood, is that Pratitya Samutpada, when we talk about cause and effect relationship, so there you find that when we said cause transforms into effect, and then we find that effect ceases to exist. But in case of Nagarjuna, he is not talking about anything is kind of cessation is there. It is a kind of continuity. So there is no cessation he is talking about. In fact, it is a Pratitya Samutpada is the exceedingly important to understand Buddhism, because it is important for two reasons, because it give a kind of impermanent and conditioned nature of all phenomena, and second is that it shows how old age, birth, and all miseries of the phenomenal existence arises in dependence upon conditions. So the word conditions are being used within the later Buddhists when they talk about the Pratitya Samutpada theory. They understood the Pratitya Samutpada in terms of the conditions, but in earlier Buddhism they understood in terms of the causality, cause-effect relation, and when cause transforms into the effect, it ceases to exist. So, and according to Madhyamik, Pratitya Samutpada doesn't mean the principle of temporal sequence, but the principle of essential dependence of things on each other. So that is a kind of, you can say it's a principle of relativity, but that is how you have to carefully understand the distinction between these two. And as I have already said, this thing is exceedingly important in the earlier Buddhism. I don't want to repeat again this. Then you all of you know that karma is a kind of very important thing in Buddhism, because they believe in the theory of karma, and karma leads to a kind of rebirth, and they don't believe in the transmigration of the soul as Hindu philosophers believe. So that is a kind of, they believe in the theory of karma, so its importance for how we are responsible for past and present decisions. Compassion is qualities of sharing, giving comfort and concern to others. We can understand others and ourselves through the wisdom. True wisdom is not believing what we are told, but experiencing and understanding. And all of you know that Buddha has provided that eightfold paths, moral principles, in order to get rid of the sufferings of the life. And then they talk about in three things are important in Buddhism: Sarvam Dukkham. In earlier Buddhism, not in later Buddhism, but in earlier Buddhism, there is a Sarvam Dukkham, Sarvam Kyanikam, and Sarvam Anatmam. That's something which is devoid of the self, permanent self. And then it skandhas, 5 skandhas are replacing that Anatha theory. So this is how then when we talk about the Sunyata, Sunyata means Nisvabhyata, and Sunyata means Pratitya Samutpad. Sunyata means something which is indescribable or abhacya, and Nisvabhyata. So that is how Nagarjuna has used Sunyata, but saying that it is nihilism or it is something which is skepticism will be a kind of misinterpretation or misunderstanding of the Sunyata theory. So coming back to the dependent origination or the Sunyata, here the dependent origination of the things, why we call emptiness? Because it is devoid of essence. So Sunyata means it has no essence, or codependence or interdependence. Those things which are dependently originated have no essential nature. Why? Because they are dependent on causes and conditions. Then he talks about Hetu and the Pratyaya. If things existed through their essential nature, then they would have existed. But they do not originate that way. Therefore, they are devoid of essential nature. And because they are essential nature, they are called empty. And that is how, if you read that Serva's Buddhist conception of Nirvana, he has already spoke about that what is Swabhav, and in fact he spoke about the 2 kinds of Swabhav, and Swabhav in terms of essential nature and Swabhav in terms of the contrary to Parabhava. And the second kind of definition is being accepted by the Nagarjuna. So we have to carefully analyze the Pratitya Samutpada doctrine developed by Nagarjuna. Why Nagarjuna is rejecting essence? By rejecting essence, what he wants to establish? What was his intention? The beauty of Sunyata is that it speaks multiple truths in the empirical sphere by opening a new avenue for everyone, path of acceptance, openness. Pratitya Samutpad in Nagarjuna's philosophy is nothing but Sunyata, and Sunyata is nothing but interrelatedness, interdependence and coexistence. I see Sunyata of Nagarjuna as a developmental model, be it economic, social, individual, mental, physical and spiritual. And that Sunyata means Chatur Koti Vinirmuktam Sunyata. So that means it is a fourfold logic. And Nagarjuna is saying that you are free to go beyond this logic and establish reality. And that is what the essencelessness, language works there. So Nagarjuna said, I bow down near Buddha who taught me Pratitya Samutpad, which according to him is the same Sunyata Madhyama Pratipad. So what I want to say is that कोई भी concept Nagarjuna का आपको समझना है तो ये फोरफोल्ड लॉजिक के द्वारा समझ सकते हैं. निर्वाण, when he speaks about causality, he said also there are 4 views, that Sota Utpatti, Parata Utpatti, Dobhyam Utpatti, Ahetuta Utpatti, and there is a possibility you can transcend all views, or you can retain or take everyone something from each one of them and can form another kind of causality. There is a possibility. The things do not end there. So that is how the Prasanga method works, that there is you can explore new things, or there is a possibility to establish something new, and we can accept that change, model of change. Perhaps that model works for the development of the society and the individual. So that way you have to causality. Nirvana also, when he speaks about fourfold logic, that also he has given. Pratitya Samutpada, fourfold logic. So everything has to understood to a dialectical logic, and that is Prasanga method he is giving, that you can analyze. That's why I said in the beginning that he is an analyzer. He's saying, I do not have a thesis to give. I am simply analyzer. I can analyze everybody, and still then I cannot produce anything because nothing is Nagarjuna. So that is how he is carrying the same idea of Buddha, that if you meet Buddha, then kill Buddha. Nothing is called the principle of Buddha. So that is also another criticism. When we talk last class also, existentialism, they criticize the essence theory, that essence is not the existence. Existence is something prior to essence. Here also you find a theory which is not rejecting the essence, but not accepting the essence as a condition, and which is required. And then in the name of conditions, we can have multiple conditions because things are interdependent. Nothing in this world independently exists. And if nothing exists independently, what is important, not the essence, but the conditions. And that is called the Sunyata in Nagarjuna's philosophy. Nagarjuna's, while explaining the concept of Pratitya Samutpada, Nagarjuna has said there is no real production. There is only manifestation of things contingent on causes and conditions. It is the condition co-production which is designated as Sunyata. Causality is only a sequence of appearances. Pratitya Samutpada is equated with Sunyata or relativity, that is emptiness of all dharmas. Nagarjuna says that when Sunyata applies to Tattva, determines that it is inexpressible in language, we cannot apply any thought category to it. Sunyata in the absolute sense, free from plurality and transcendent to thought. Chandrakirti says that all these terms, Madhyamik philosophy, refer to same thing and are therefore interchangeable. Nagarjuna has established this equation. And then, so as part of his analysis of emptiness of phenomena in Mula Madhyamik Karika, Nagarjuna critiques Swabhav in several different concepts. He discusses the problems of positing any sort of inherent essence to causation, moment, change, and personal identity. Nagarjuna makes use of the Indian logical tool, the tetralemma, to attack any essentialist conceptions. Nagarjuna's logical analysis is based on 4 basic propositions. All things exist, affirmation of being, negation of non-being. All things do not exist, affirmation of non-being, negation of being. All things, both dharma exist, do not exist. All things neither exist nor do not exist. That is again also another slok is there in Madhyamik Karika, Asthiti Nasthiti Ubhe Piyanta, Suddhi Asuddhi Ime Piyanta, Ubhe Anta Vivajyate, Madhyampi Sthanam Na Karoti Panditaha. So there is no, so there you find then there is a kind of not ontological Advaita model is there, but there is a kind of epistemological emphasis on the epistemology or Advayavada, as T.R.B. Murthy also rightly claimed that Nagarjunian model of Sunyata is based on something which is epistemological Advayavada. To say all things are empty is to deny any kinds of ontological foundation. Therefore, Nagarjuna's view is often seen as a kind of ontological anti-foundationalism or a metaphysical anti-realism. Understanding the nature of the emptiness of phenomena is simply a means to an end, which is nirvana. Thus, Nagarjuna's philosophical project is ultimately a soteriological one meant to correct our everyday cognitive process, which is mistakenly posit Swabhav on the flow of experience. So that soteriological explanation of Sunyata is given by Sagovsky in his book, The Conception of Nirvana. So further, the Chandrakirti also has explained the theory-dependent theory of origination. I do not know how much time I have, so I'll skip some of the slides. And the major thing is that Nagarjuna challenged the assumptions of essentialism and nihilism, attempting to demonstrate through rigorous logical analysis. Both views are self-contradictory, absurd, and false. And as I have already said, that the Sunya as a symbol of inexpressible, as I said, in the higher level, in the Paramartha Satya, when you go, so Nagarjuna is saying that Sunya is the symbol of inexpressible, and that he said 8 no's, जैसे हमारा नीति नीति method उपनिषद में है. So he is also saying that अनिरुद्धम अनुत्पादम अनुच्छेदम अशाश्वतम अनेकार्थम अनन्यार्थम अनागमम अनिगमम. That is a kind of explanation beyond production, beyond destruction, beyond eternality. So that kind of explanation also you find when you read the Sarvasky's Buddhist conception of Nirvana. Sunyata is not a theory in the sense that Nagarjuna has not advanced any theory of his own. So his dialectics is used as a criticism to all drishtis. For Nagarjuna, all dharmas are sunya, nisvabhyata, devoid of any substantial independent reality. Sunyata is not nihilism. So many scholars, as I have already said, that interpreted it in terms of nihilism. So it transcends both affirmation and negation, and so that is how rejected the Chandrakirti criticized the others' views when they said Sunyata is something nihilism. And so that is how we understand the Nagarjuna's concept of Sunyata. And as I said that already I have discussed the fourfold logic prasanga method of Nagarjuna, that how he has demolished all possible alternatives given by other schools, and he has developed a reductio ad absurdum method as we do in the logic. So that is to understand the reality, any causality or nirvana or any kind of theories. And when he talk about the causality, he has given the 4 views that he has criticized, not criticized, analyzed and criticized the Sutta Utpatti, where Sutta Utpatti is wrong, and where Parata Utpatti is wrong, production from another, Dabhyam Utpatti, production from both and from another, Ohetuta Utpatti, production without any cause, production by chance. So the doctrine of Sutta Utpatti or Satkaryavada theory of Sankhya philosophy believes that cause and effect are identical and things are produced out of them. And that view has been criticized by Madhyamik Buddhism, and ultimately he has analyzed all the aspects, and then he has not established that by criticizing what is uniqueness of Nagarjuna's philosophy is that simply an analyzer, and he analyzed, then once you reach to the conclusion, and that conclusion may be the beginning of another set of theory. And that way we have to see the Sunyata theory. You may agree with him or disagree with him. Like in philosophy, we never establish any conclusion. And that is what I think Nagarjuna is also doing when he is analyzing his concepts. That is an explanation of all. So how much time I have, sir? Hello? Only 5 minutes, okay. So then I cannot explain the fourfold logic, Sutta Utpatti, Parata Utpatti, Dabhyam Utpatti, Ahetuta Utpatti. So this is a kind of what I am trying to say. Everything in Nagarjuna can be understood this fourfold logic. You have a kind of, you analyze everything and ends there, and but that is not the position. You simply think is that you are analyzing and criticizing others, but not establishing something of your own. And if you are not establishing something of your own, so then Nagarjuna says you can't criticize me. So simply, I am simply an analyzer. Whether you criticize me or not, I do not know, but I do not have a stand. In order to know the essenceless doctrine of Nagarjuna, it is essential to know the essence and Swabhav. Without that, you cannot understand that theory of Sunyata. So he has understood Swabhav in terms of, it may mean the essence or special property of a thing. For example, a concrete fire is a thing and heat is its own being. In other words, heat is the special property of the fire. So that is, everything in this world has to be understood in relation to others. So like for example, take for the example, if I am giving something, मैं अगर कुछ बोल रही हूँ इधर, because there is a association with the philosophy, because I cannot separate my existence from the philosophy. And the same way that teachers are important for me, from which I have learned all these things. So in a way, my existence is dependent on so many conditions. And if that is that, if I cannot reject that condition and establish my own identity. So the problem of identity started when we have the essentialistic view. And then in all the philosophy, in fact, even within the metaphysical theory also, you find they also talk about how to get rid of the problem of identity. So here that the Nagarjuna is saying what is important is that your conditions and co-conditions which defines your existence, not the essence. And that is how you have to understand, because in the society, if you say that I am the alone, I have my own existence, I can prove it. So Nagarjuna will say that is not possible. Everything is correlated and co-conditions, that is not possible. And that's why religious disputes or any kind of disputes has no meaning, because everybody has their own way to understand the reality and everybody is right on their own way. So you do not have to say that this is what Buddhism is, this is what Jainism is. You may take every positive things and can create another positive things. And that is the nature of Sunyata, nature of Prajna. And that is a growth. And as you find in case of Vedanta, Brahma, Satya, Jagat, Mithya, Jive, Brahmeva, Napara. So that kind of Nisvabhyata. The only difference is that it is the Advayabhada epistemology. Do not have essence, do not have a substance view, do not talk about the permanence nature of the things. And other way that you find essentialistic view, they have the nature of reality is something eternal, permanent, everlasting, and not subject to destruction. So that kind of things are there. So this is how I have discussed also the Swabhav, nature of the Swabhav, and I said that essential quality. So it is one way of understanding the essence is that essence or special property of a thing. And the second way of understanding the Swabhav is the contrary of Parabhava. So that is Chandrakirti says, so Swabhava ityasya padarthasya yadatmiya Rupam tat tasya Swabhava iti. So this is what the second meaning of the Swabhav is being accepted by the Nagarjuna, that contrary to the Parabhava. So Madhyamik rejects the first meaning of Swabhav and accepts only the second. It is essential to understand the deeper philosophical thoughts required in order to understand the conditionality of being and its contingent nature. But what is important is that even though we know heat is the special property of the fire, yet its dependency, coexistence and cooperation of various factors such as match, fuel, oxygen and etc. cannot be studied in isolation. Thus for Nagarjuna, everything in this world can be understood in terms of interrelatedness, codependence, and coexistence. And that is what Bodhisattvahood is: compassion, love. So Karuna and Mahakaruna is the centricity of the language. You can change the problems of the world and unite all of us together. So we can talk about social harmony also. One's own being is defined in such a way no separate own being can be found for separate entity. There is no own being of a dharma is a causal connection, because conditions, co-production. Nagarjuna's interpretation has to be understood within an epistemological and moral framework. The ontological denial of Swabhav is not there. We may say within a logical framework that dharma have no one being at all. But from the standpoint of Pragya, highest knowledge, we can claim some level of certainty is there. And so that is how I'll just quickly complete that, just saying that Nagarjuna tries to re-establish the silence of the Buddha to the metaphysical question and establishing a middle path theory by affirming neither existence nor non-existence, neither permanence nor impermanence, neither identity nor difference, but showing the relativity of all conceptions. Even the basic element of existence, dharma, are to be taken void of ultimate reality. That is what I said, astiti nastiti ubhepi anta, suddhi asuddhi imepi anta, tasmad ubhe anta vivarjate madhyampi sthanam na karoti Pandita. One can also see that Nagarjuna's arguments takes a linguistic approach to the metaphysical problems. Nagarjuna's Mulamadhyamik Karika reveals an intimate understanding of how language and its conceptual framework constructs an individual and social reality. Another dimension of Nagarjuna's dialectics is its concern with the problem of language. In this context, T.R.B. Murthy writes, the Chatuskoti dialectic employed by Nagarjuna in his Mulamadhyamik Karika consists of a series of propositional negations which are meant to exhaust all possible metaphysical claims, where skepticism a matter of merely practicing illusionary negation. The Chatuskoti could be seized as non-essential if not superfluous to it. The later Nayayika's critics such as Vasayan and Udayatur accused Nagarjuna as Vaithandik, which is not just a justified claim. In this case, T.R.B. Murthy claim is justified by saying the dialectic is a series of reductio ad absurdum arguments. Every thesis is turned against itself. So that is how the Nagarjuna should be read. And as I have already given this quotation, the central topic of Madhyamik Karika text is emptiness, the Buddhist technical term for the lack of independent existence, inherent existence or essence in things. Nagarjuna relentlessly analyzes phenomena or process that appears to exist independently and argues that they cannot so exist, and yet, though lacking the inherent existence imputed to them either by naive common sense or by sophisticated realistic philosophical theory, these phenomena are not non-existent. They are, he argues, conventionally real. That is an interpretation given by Gerfeld. And then I said that what is Bodhisattva is a kind of enlightenment idea, more liberal to understand the world and its phenomena, so universalistic and more applicable, and that's why Madhyamik Buddhism is successful in compared to the earlier Buddhism, having some rigid, egoistic understanding of the reality. As I said, that na sansaratya nirvanat kinchit asti visheshanam, and na nirvanasya sansarat kinchit asti visheshanam. In Mula Madhyamik Karika, नागार्जुन से जहाँ निर्वाण है वही संसार है, सो इसलिए किसी को कहीं जाने का जरूरत नहीं. Only thing is that we have to understand everything in terms of pragya or nisvabhyata. The sole idea of Nagarjuna is to liberate the mindset of the people from a narrow sphere and also cleverly formulation of the truth. However, we can conclude by saying that Nagarjuna Sunyata is an antidote to sufferings. It is an antidote against dogmatic views. Throughout the Madhyamik Shastra, Nagarjuna has been at pains to prove the absolute is transcendental to both thought and speech. Neither the concept of bhava nor the concept of bhava is applicable to it. Liberation is the cessation of all thought and the dissolution of all plurality. The Buddha taught nothing at any time, in any place, to any person. So that is what Chatuskoti Vinimuktam Sunyatam. And thank you so much for giving me the chance to share my views. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Professor Jayanti, for very brilliantly reflecting on the theme Nagarjuna's Doctrine of Sunyata. Madam, you have given the logical, linguistic and conceptual clarification of Sunyata as envisaged by Nagarjuna, and it's a very comprehensive and clear presentation which leaves no room for doubt. And though Nagarjuna is a great scholar of Buddha, he is sometimes said to be idealist, pragmatic, sometimes skeptic, mystic, sometimes nihilist by different thinkers. And you have seen him as an analyzer. To you, he is a critic of logic and defender of classical logic. Everything can be analyzable by his fourfold logic that you have given very comprehensively. And taking Mula Madhyamika Karika as the philosophical text of Nagarjuna, you have clearly said that his philosophy is neither abstract nor otherworldly. It provides holistic knowledge to establish unity in diversity, to overcome all kinds of stress and anxiety, to correct our everyday misunderstanding. And it translates both affirmation and negation. Nagarjuna has beautifully explained and analyzed the concept sunyata or emptiness. And you have also quoted J.C. Naik's statement that it is a technique to get rid of all kinds of problems. And Nagarjuna has really said that I don't have a thesis to give. And Sunyata is Sunyata and Pratitya Sampada, and all the problems of Buddha, they are correlated with each other, that you have given a beautiful explanation on that. And you have given that how Nagarjuna has given the logical analysis of all kinds of problems of contemporary society. And Sunyata, as you have said, is not a narrow ideological sphere. It is a state of calmness. It is non-dual. It is not an end in itself. It is a means to overcome all kinds of contemporary problems. It is a means to attain prajna and to respect other views. It is a technique to get rid of all kinds of misunderstanding of the viewers, and how it helps for understanding the mathematical philosophy. And you have given very beautiful examples and other explanations to have a clear understanding of the theme Sunyata. I don't want to explore all the things. And one thing that you have spoken, that the beauty of Sunyata is that it speaks multiple truths in empirical sphere, and it is meant for social harmony. With this, I again congratulate you for reflecting on such a beautiful concept before us, and I request Professor Dr. K. Omanan Rao to interact.
Viewers, over to Dr. Rao.
Namaskar everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mahana. Thank you, madam, for your very nice lecture. Well, I'll interact with madam later on, but before that, we have with us a Buddhist scholar, Professor Avinash Srivastav sir. He has put on his camera. Maybe he would like to have his observations on the talk of Dr. Jayanti Sahoo. Well, welcome, sir. Professor Avinash Srivastav sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And let me first congratulate Madam Jayanti for delivering a wonderful speech encompassing all the aspects of Buddhism as well as the Indian philosophy. And I tell you, in the very outset, she has said, Yo patit samuppada passati, so dhamma passati, yo dhamma passati, so mama passati, and we say, so Buddha passati. So it is not exactly in the text, one thing. Secondly, this Pratitya samutpada, and you have tried to compare everything, but there is a Avyakat Panhu in early Buddhist texts. And there we find there is one gentleman, his name is Sanjaya Veliputta. He is basically a Jain Pandita, and he comes to Buddha and raised 4 questions. Hoti tathagato parmang marna, na hoti tathapato parmang marna, hoti cha na hoti tathagato parmang marna, na hoti cha na hoti tathagato parmang marna. And Buddha keeps mum. And do you know what happens thereafter? This Sanjaya Veliputta says, it means you do not know anything. You are an ignorant man. And Buddha smiled. And then he said, he just lit a lamp, and thereafter he bloomed it. And asked, where did this light gone? South or north, east or west, in the sky or down the earth? Then Sanjaya Veliputta says, no, it doesn't suit the case. In the same way, what happened, this Sunyata, the concept of Sunyata, because Nagarjuna has said, Chatuskoti Vinirmukta, as Buddha has kept mum on these 4 questions, and rather he has also extended 4 questions to Sanjaya Veliputta and he became mum. Then he said, well, we cannot argue anything, we cannot demonstrate anything by 4 ways of arguing. So you have just very nicely presented the thing But one thing that I want to ask from you, though I have a lot of plethora of ideas has emerged in your mind after your narration, so it is it is not possible for us to narrate everything here. But one small question I want to say, Buddha negated metaphysics. He kept mum all the metaphysics. On the contrary, Nagarjuna created a new metaphysics on the basis of non-metaphysics of Buddha. Would you please kind enough to answer this question?
Sir, first of all, I'd like to say thanks for your insightful observations. I agree with what you said because I also have gone through that, Sanjay. It's the book is in front of me, History of Buddhist Philosophy by Kalupahan. So it's like you are very rightly, and my knowledge is very limited, and I'm trying to understand these people. And as you have rightly said, that many times also the same questions comes to my mind by rejecting the metaphysical notion, and Nagarjuna is trying to create another kind of metaphysical notion, but though he is not accepting that. So that is very much there. We cannot rule out that in the interpretation label. But again, because he is, yes, that is there, and many people has also said it is a form of absolutism, or a kind of, many people say he is a Advaitin also. They said that Vedanta model is still is retaining. There are people, but I see is that because the position is the position. And if we say that Buddhism is also the Vedantic, so then again the essentialism, the Nisobhavyata will have no meaning. If we put it in a kind of ontological framework, then that essencelessness theory which is giving through the theory of rejecting the Swabhav and the essence and making it a conditionality for existence to happen, and so then that will, I think, probably will lose the importance of Sunyata theory. That's what I understood. Maybe I am wrong, because as I said that, sir, I'm thankful to you because I have very limited knowledge, and my interpretation, understanding may not be true for others, but that way I understand all the systems in Indian philosophy has a very positive content with everywhere you find, and holistic in approach. The differences are the method of understanding the things, but that is something which is holistic. And I like Nagarjuna for many reasons. I said that it transcends the barriers, it transcends the limitations, narrowness, and acceptability to others, and create a space which was never there before in any philosophy. You find that, and probably that could be the reason why I like the Sunyata theory. So that's what. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I hope I have answered.
In fact, what happens, I tell you very honestly, because any philosophy is the emergence of its own time. It was the Buddha time, it was the most suited philosophy there. But coming to the latter age, what happened, they had to fight with so many philosophical trains and schools as well. So in order to counter them, it was the time that you will have to frame a metaphysics here. So it was the demand of the day, it was the need of the time. That's why Nagarjuna has, in order to answer all the questions of the contemporary opponents, he has to frame it. And secondly, Shankaracharya came after Nagarjuna, and that's why he has utilized the same tool what Nagarjuna has used in his own logic, and he has defeated the Buddhists through the tools of the Nagarjuna itself, and that's why he is called Prachanna.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Srivastava, and thank you, Dr. Jayanti, for your responses. Well, we have with us Professor Ghosh. Welcome, sir. Professor Ranjit Ghosh, sir. Please unmute, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Rao. We must congratulate Professor Sahoo for her beautiful representations of Madhyamika's philosophy. Now, three things I want to emphasize, that she has very nicely given us the idea of Sunyata as a developmental model. This is very important thing. And now the discussion that is centering around whether the Sankara can be treated as a Prachanna Buddha, etc., etc. So these things are, we can very well say that Madhyamika is, especially we are talking about the Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is trying to bring two types of sattva. One is Paramarthika sattva and Sambriti sattva. So he says that God even is a part of Sunyata. God is coming out of Sunyata. God is not having any independent reality of its own. That is what you are mentioning in Svabhava. The thing is, there is no essentialistic thing in Nagarjuna's philosophy. So God himself is a product of Sunyata. So how we then explain God, etc. Then Sambriti Sattva that he is talking about, that conventionally we can talk about a person, we can talk about the God and all these things. These are all the conventional way of expressing things. So saying that we can give the status of Brahman in Sankara to Sunyata is not, it will not hold good. This is what I believe. Now another important thing that you have mentioned, that that it is ontological anti-fundamentalism or metaphysical anti-realism. So this is also very important so far as Nagarjuna is concerned, because Nagarjuna rejects the correspondence theory of truth. He never believes in the correspondence. So we find a framework of Sunyata in Buddhism, which we can say it is not nihilistic in a direct sense. It is a passively nihilistic thing. We can hold it in that way. So how do you react to this? Thank you.
Sir, I agree first of all for your observations, and beautifully you have yourself, you have answered to your questions also. I agree there, and there is nothing I have to say that yes, like we always said that Buddhist, in case of Buddhist also we said they are Prachanna Vedantin, and in case of Sankaracharya we said Prachanna Buddha, because that is a wrong analysis to me. Everybody has their own way of understanding the reality. So if we give different names to them, they will lose their own originality, and probably it will be very difficult then to understand the essence of their own philosophy. Though, so that is how I also agree with you. So that Brahma of the Sankaracharya and the Sunya of Nagarjuna, though it may appears to be the ultimate goal is same, but they are talking in a two different levels of reality. One is a strong metaphysics, okay, strong ontological claim, and one is a strong epistemological claim. So, and that we have to retain if we, and we cannot just say that many of the ideas looks to be similar, everybody is that, then we cannot say Jain are Vedantin, Vedantins are Jain. So that is in philosophy we are doing, but that is not the correct way of. And the second thing which you said, anti-realism, anti-foundationalism, and you said that some level of passive nihilism is there. But I don't see that. Then how do we define nihilism? That is the first thing. That what exactly is the kind of nihilism what we find in case of Kierkegaard or Nietzsche talk about nihilism? Is that kind of nihilism we are talking about? And if that is the nihilism, then I don't think, sir, I have much examples to give, but I think that kind of passive nihilism is not their Sunyata theory, because Sunyata is a kind of working reality. So you are always experiencing something. So when you are experiencing something, you are also not skeptic, because you are not a skeptic that you do not have a position. So you may criticize others, but so because you, like I said, that something which he said, there is no language to explain that kind of experience. Okay, something that, so that is when he said that Sunyata needs to be understood very carefully, like giving the Vinasaj, see those Kruta. Okay, like those example of snake he has given, that in Mula Madhyamik Karika. Agar aap usko wrongly use karenge, so then that Sunyata can destroy you. Okay, and that is a kind of full of moral, spiritual, and a vibrant experience, which I do not see why people said it is a nihilism. So that I understood.
Thank you, madam. I could get the point that Sunyata is non-existence. It is not nothingness, as proposed by the existentialist philosophers. Okay, so this is the position of Sunyata. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Jayanti Sahoo, madam, thank you for your responses. Well, before I move to Pramod Kumar Das sir, who wants to raise some issues, well, I should say that 3-4 questions in the chat box by Smriti Rekha Nayak, they are directly, I think they are addressed by the questions raised by Professor Ghosh and Srivastava, and that are beautifully addressed by Dr. Jayanti Sahoo, madam. So no need to go through those questions. And even the question raised by Dr. Chandrika, that also has been discussed. And if Chandrika madam wants to say something, she can unmute herself and make her observations. But now let us rightly move to Professor Das for his observations and his questions and all.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. I really congratulate Professor Sahoo for her honest presentation. Whenever she is saying something, she is saying very honestly. Therefore, that shows her scholarship. That is a scholarly attitude. My fundament, today I have a question. I don't have any observation. I have some doubts, and this question to all of you. Anybody can answer. What is exactly Sunyata? We are speaking for more than 1 hour about Sunyata, about Nagarjuna's view. Suppose a student will ask, what is exactly Sunyata? I am giving some multiple answers so that we can choose one. Is it an epistemological limitation? That means it is purna, it is full of essence, it is complete. We means man, including Nagarjuna, any philosopher, great philosopher, including Shankaracharya, we have epistemological limitation to assess that purna. There, even we apply Chatuskoti logic. Madam said that absolute is transcendental to thoughts and speech. The best thought, best speech, best wisdom, best logical arguments, applying all these things, we are not capable of assessing that complete. We can't say it exists, we can't say it does not exist. That means that cannot be predicated. It is such a subject. If we give any predicate, that will rather limit that subject. So epistemologically, this is Sunyata. This is an epistemological concept. Sunyata means our incapability, epistemological limitation to assess that complete. Therefore, Nagarjuna's philosophy is compared with Advaita Vedanta in this sense. Neti, 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 not this, not this, not this, not this means you can't describe. It is indescribable. Sunyata means indescribable. That is so purna, so, it is not non-essentialism. It is full of essence that cannot be assessed by any human judgment, human knowledge. This is one multiple choice answer. The second answer is, it may be, Sunyata means Nirguna. Nirguna means no essence, no attributes. As Buddha said, Anatma. Buddha said there is no matter, no substance. No essence means it is a negation. It is a negation. If we say that, then it will go to nihilism. This view will go to nihilism. If we go with the first option, then it will go with the Advaitism. That this is such a truth that we cannot assess it. So my question is, what is really Sunyata? It is an ontological emptiness, or it is an epistemological limitation? Madam, will you please answer, then I shall continue.
Sir, thank you for your observation and comments, and you always make things fruitful, and you have already answered yourself. And this is, for me, actually, I see it's a kind of, you can say, epistemological limitations, but I do not see any kind of limitations here, because Sunyata is not a kind of ordinary model which we are understood generally in terms of nihilism or skepticism. Because the whole idea of Nagarjuna, because we cannot social and the individual problems, and the philosophy when addressed to the any kind of empirical problems, it means it is not an ordinary truth. First thing is that. And Sunyata, if it is not a kind of, as I said, it is a technique. As Professor G.C. Naik also said, that it is a technique to get rid of all sort of isms. And because Nagarjuna came a time where already existing traditions were already existed by the Upanishad and the Brahmanvad and by the Charvak and by the earlier Buddhism also, it was there. And when he is addressing, he is not trying to create further problems. His idea is not to create further problems. So basically, if we take Sunya in that sense, and what is the problem? The problem is essentialism, whether we accept it or reject it. Because when we have a particular ideology and say that this is what the truth is, okay, and truth cannot be changed, okay, but this truth differs from person to person. And in that sense, the Sunyata is important, addressing the each individual's problems. It may not need a kind of foundationalism or need a kind of essentialism to prove himself. Because always we look for, in philosophy, what is the problem? We look some kind of established reality. And that is very easy to say that. If I said that this is a position of Vedanta, I do not, it's a position. Essentialism is very easy to understand.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I got you, ma'am. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, whatever you said after my question, whatever you said about the limitation of epistemology, epistemological mechanism. You are just saying that we are incapable of giving a judgment about truth. The question is, what is truth? This is a fundamental question in philosophy. Jainas have asked this. I shall say Sunyata can be compared with Jainism. That the elephant is the truth which is assessed by 5 blind men, and they are claiming that their judgments are true from their perspectives, and they are claiming the part is the whole. That is a mistake. From that, so Nagarjuna, because he is a scholar after Buddhism, so he is developing the philosophy of Buddhism. Buddha was silent about metaphysics, but Nagarjuna is explaining that silence. What was the exact meaning of the silence? Buddha was silent because truth cannot be described. If we are not silent, then we shall speak something. And whatever we shall speak, that is not truth. Understand my point or not? Whatever we shall speak, that will come under a philosophical system. Either it will be Sankhya or Naya or Advaita or Advaita or any ism. And you have said that what Jisinak said, he said very beautifully. We have to understand his thought. He is a very great scholar. He is saying that this is a technique to go beyond. To go beyond. This is a technique. That means human mind should be free to accommodate the dialectical thoughts, the opposites. What is bondage? The bondage is when man is trapped by one horn. What is freedom? Freedom means what is real rationality? That means we are open for the dialectical opposites. And not only that, we should have a capacity to go beyond. So my point is, truth is that beyond. Truth is that beyondness, that beyond, that essence, which cannot be described by any logic, any thought. Okay, so including the 4 possible dimensions of logic, Nagarjuna has said that 4 dimensions of logic, they work in the empirical world. They are relative to the empirical world. They don't work in the metaphysical world. So we can't apply mathematics and logic in the phenomena in the metaphysical world. So Sunyata means better you don't describe, because whatever we will describe, that will be your interpretation, that will be your description, that will be your philosophy. Exactly the same thing is said by Jaina thinkers, that is Sadvada. Why should we compare it with Advaitavada? Advaitavada says that this is such Advaita, it cannot have any predicate, because the predicate will be the Dvaita. Predicate will be the second reality, second entity, which will contradict the subject. So this is an unpredicted subject, which cannot be predicated by the finite human intelligence. In that sense, it is a Sunya. So don't speculate any philosophy. Number 1, we are speculating. Number 2, we are establishing systems. Number 3, we are following that the whole life, and we are guiding others, and we are doing PhD thesis on that. Whatever we speculate. Nagarjuna is saying that that is such a truth that no speculation, your speculation can't describe it. So, what really Sunyata is? Can you speak in 2 or 3 lines? What is exactly Sunyata? What does Sunyata mean?
Sir,
I want to know this. Actually, I want to know this.
I just want to add one thing. What Das is saying, that is Sunyata the result of the dialectic, or it is the beginning of the dialectic? So if it is the result of the dialectic, the process that Nagarjuna is employing, then it is definitely a metaphysical one. The emptiness is non-existence. Emptiness or non-existence is a metaphysical one. And in our understanding of things, as Professor Das is saying, that if we go on describing it, then we will put ourselves into some type of confusion, so better we have to remain silent. So that is what probably Professor Das is recommending. How do you say this?
Yes, sir. Even dialectic is not the last solution. Dialectic is an attempt. Nagarjuna's dialectic is an attempt to understand that truth. If the truth is not understood by speculation, by description, by logical analysis, by other sources, so dialectic is the best source because it accommodates the opposites, the pairs of opposites. Okay, so this is the highest form of a human thought. But by applying that latest version of human thought, Nagarjuna is saying, I fail. I fail to assess that truth. Therefore it is Sunya. Therefore it is Sunya. Sunya, Sunya, Mahasunya. I forget that latter sentence. Sunya, 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 Mahasunya. Tadhe Khalanti Param Brahman Kono. That Sunya is Mahasunya. It is so. It is Mahasunya. Even that is also described in our Bhagavad Gita. Purnam Medam. That is so Purna that if you add something, it remains same. If you deduct something, that remains same. That is always Purna. That means that cannot be destroyed. That cannot be added.
Purnamada Purnameva Purnameva Sisyate. Not
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyade Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avishishyate.
So nice. It is that Sunya. It is that Purna which cannot be described by even by God. I think Nagarjuna is saying that Nagarjuna's philosophy should be understood properly. So if we do not agree with this, then we should agree with nihilism. If we do not agree with this, then we shall agree with nihilism. Those who are saying that Sunyata is nihilism, they are right. If we are going to contradict their views, then I shall give this solution. No, Sunyata is not nihilism because Sunyata is that Purna, that completeness, which cannot be assessed epistemologically. That the metaphysics remains metaphysics, and metaphysics is not possibly explained through epistemology. No epistemology can explain metaphysics.
Sir, though I don't disagree, but I do not completely agree, because see, that point is that when Nagarjuna has said many things regarding Sunyata, because we should not ask, because see that when he said that Aniruddham Anutpadam Anuchedam Asaswatam Anekartham Ananartham Anagamam Anirgamam. It's beyond production, neither beginning. Dialectics is not neither beginning of any logic nor end of any logic. He is not looking for any kind of metaphysical solutions here. Okay, we are trying to give it, but he is not rejecting also anyone. He said, Sunyamiti navaktavyam asunyamiti bhavavet ubhayam nabhayam cheti pragyam pratyartham tu katyate. He left it to that higher wisdom to decide that what experience you are having, and everybody has the same experience of that. When we talk about, we speaks about the Bodhisattva word, because Sunyata is Pratitya Samutpada. Sunyata is essencelessness. Sunyata is Nirvana, or the Bodhisattva word. And each person's experience is the same. As you said that I agree with you to some extent that Sunya is the totality or the fullness. But his understanding, the way he tries to understand the thing is a little different, that we have to analyze, like you find in case of rationalist model of understanding, Cartesian model of doubt. You start with an inquiry. Try to know. He said that you are not rejecting a thing exists. I'm not saying a thing doesn't exist. He is not rejecting anything. But he is also not saying that this is my views. The problem is that we want to always give a views and try to impose on others. And the situation in society is something that we always try to impose our ideas on others, understanding whether that person is trying to accept it or different. But we are giving a model that you first practice this. If it suits you, then accept it. If it doesn't, then you can go your own. Okay. The problem is that in basically he is not addressing any ordinary truths. He is saying that problem where that all religions, the objective of all religions to establish unity and harmony. But why it is wrong? Why we are unable to establish that? Because that we do not want to see the higher truth. We have the ego. We have the essence views. So that is why he is bringing all sort of things, that probably this could be a model where all of we can work and retain our positivity or essentialistic conditions, and then go for a higher developmental model. Then we can work, everybody can work together. Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, everybody can work. So that is a developmental model I see in Nagarjuna. That
Okay.
Dr. Rao, 1 minute. That model is an epistemological model. Okay, we have to accept that Sunyata is an epistemological model to have a better understanding that truth which is not understood by other means of the mind. That is an epistemological model. Okay. This is my submission.
yes, sir, I agree. That he said the problem is that Nagarjuna not rejecting earlier Buddhism all position. He is accepting the karma theory also. He is accepting everything.
So if this is the model, then what is the ethics? The ethics comes from this model that if the truth is not accessible by our knowledge, so kindly don't be trapped by any aging. So be secular in religion, be broad-minded, have this spirit. So this ethics comes from the epistemological limitation. If you fail to describe that as truth, don't build your school of thought. Don't have your philosophical system. Don't be biased by your own conviction. Okay, because that leads to Sunyata. So, but this is my understanding. Dr. Rao, please continue.
Yes. Well,
One thing, then can we conclude by saying that the understanding, the Sunyata is Paramarthika, and the understanding of Sunyata is what the other one, Samvriti Sattva. So we have to find out something that the understanding. Because
one thing I would like to say, sir.
Yeah, please.
It is basically a epistemological principle that has been interpreted in a metaphysical, also in a metaphysical way. And he has categorically, it has taken from the Avyakat Panho, and wherein it is categorically stated that we cannot understand the thing or we cannot speak anything in fourfold way. So that's why he says Chatuskutir Vinurmukta. So we cannot apply all these four categories of any of the things of the world, and at the same time we cannot equate it with the Purnamida, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vishishyate, only because that speaks of essentialism and he speaks of non-essentialism. So this is the basic thing. You are talking metaphysically and Nagarjuna is speaking epistemologically. It is the and from this epistemology the ethics evolves and everything comes out. And it totally depends upon our interpretation. That is another thing. But it cannot be equated with essentialism of the Upanishads, because even Buddha has said there is three differences between the Buddhism and the Upanishadic philosophy or the Vedic philosophy. Sarvam Anatmam, Sarvam Dukkham, and Sarvam Chanikam. When all these three differentiation, and on the contrary, what does he say? Ajo nitya shashvato yang purano na hanyate hanyamane sarire. Eternalism, essentialism, and permanent thing are there. So when they are dichotomy, a difference between the two, we cannot equate the two things in the same way. That's another thing. There is more interpretation because we have the paucity of time. Otherwise, I would have tried to explain the things in a better way. so that everything can be solved. However, I agree with Professor Jayanti that she has given a very nice deliberation on that. Thank you again for your nice presentation, and thank you, Professor Das, for your nice discussion also, because vade vade jayate tattva bodha, because without this debate, the things are not be concluded finally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I learned something from each one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Srivastava, Professor Ghosh, and Professor Das. Well, one thing still remains. What Professor Das was trying to say is, when you say Sunyata is indescribable, do you mean the essence? Number one. Number two, he's pointing out a multiple choice question. Now, this is the first option that he has given. Then, when he said, does Sunyata means conditionality or the changing nature of phenomena? Well, if I make a reference to Professor Ghosh, who has tried to see this very rightly, because as even Nagarjuna has done, making a distinction between Samriti Satta and the Paramarthika Satta, well, Sunyata as a concept, as it is something indescribable, is a metaphysical concept, but we have to understand it in an epistemological sense. Then we have to understand Sunyata is something that is relative, something that is conditional, something that implies the changing nature of phenomena. So that is the sense we have to understand. So it is only then we can resolve this conflict. Otherwise, we have to, if you take, yes, Sunyata as it is indescribable. There you can think of Advaitic concept and all that. But if you intermix, then the problem will arise. Because Nagarjuna understands that Sunyata as Paripurna, what Professor Das has said, but he's not referring to that. He's keeping that aside.
Very good, very good.
Sunyata is conditionality. That the priority that Nagarjuna gives is to the conditionality aspect, the relative aspect. That's why, yes, that's why Nagarjuna is referred to as. That's why Nagarjuna is referred to as the Einstein of India, because he is talking of relativism. So that's why very rightly Nagarjuna is referred as the Einstein of India.
Dr. Rao, I just supplement your view, and you said what I have said. The first thing, Nagarjuna admits two realms of reality. One is Paramarthika and the other is Vyavaharika, or the word we are using?
Samriti Satta.
Or Vyavaharika Satta. In Vedanta it is called Vyavaharika Satta. Samriti Satta. From this assertion, it is proved that there is a Paramarthika Satta, which cannot be described through any instrument of the Vyavaharika Satta. Therefore, that Paramarthika Satta remains Sunya. Sunya means it cannot be epistemologically reached. That means it is so purna, it is so rich, we can digest it, we can't describe it, we can't get it, because we belong to this Vyavaharika Satta, this another realm. So, remaining in one realm, we cannot, that bridge is not built yet. There is no bridge between this realm and that realm. Logic fails, Chatuskuti that fails. Dialectic perhaps is an attempt to understand that Sunyata, but still Nagarjuna says, no, that still remains Sunya. Sunya means it is indescribable. In Advaita Vedanta it is said, yes, there is a possibility that Brahmavid Brahmeva Bhavati, this cannot be realized by any other instrument of knowing. It can only be realized through self-realization, and when one is ultimately merged in that, there is no clamor, there is no knower, known and knowledge, no distinction at all, no dialectic, no duality. This position is discussed in Advaita Vedanta. We are not going to that, but so far as Nagarjuna is concerned, he is giving an epistemological model, and that model belongs to this empirical world, Vyavaharika Satta. And he is saying that this is the latest model to understand the dichotomy between these two realms. But if we say Sunya means void, Sunya means no essence, then we shall be criticized that Sunyata is nihilism. But actually Sunyata is not nihilism as existentialist philosophers claim. They advocate nihilism, they advocate frustration, they advocate despair, they all these things they advocate. That cannot be compared with Nagarjuna because he is a son of Indian soil. He has that spirit. So his philosophy is very, it is more the great philosophy. Thank you, Dr. Rao, and thank you, Professor Sahoo, and Professor Ghosh, Siddhastavji, Chandrika Madam. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Das. Well, the last line would I like to speak. Well, when you talk, say, going by what Nagarjuna has said, Sunya is indescribable. So we have to live with the conditionalities of the world. Is this the final take that we can have from Dr. Sahoo?
Sir, that's not the final take. As Nagarjuna also has not given any answer to that. He left out that. I also left with the indescribability, but that indescribability, what you are saying, is not Nagarjuna is saying, because that indescribable model is something which everyone has to realize to come to the level of bodhisattva. And that is what he is looking for, that if everyone becomes bodhisattva through, because he is giving so many other, when he speaks about 10 paramitas and he speaks about a kind of how to work on for the bodhisattva model and going through the sila, samadhi and the pragya. It's something which is indescribable, like in case of, see, for example, in case of Brahma can be realized through intuition at Anubhav, and here also the same thing is, only the difference is Advaita, as you are already rightly said, that epistemology, but that epistemology, indescribability, what you said is because, as you have already said, that can't be understood by the person who doesn't have experienced that, and in that sense it is indescribable, because as in Vedanta also they said to speak about Brahma is limiting the Brahma. So there even it is a ontological model. They also apply the same thing, that Brahma cannot be speak. So you have to realize only. And that is a kind of, that realization is called bodhisattva. And I think probably there you might say that some kind of metaphysical attachment people are bringing to Nagarjuna. That I do not ignore also. But then again also I don't know. Like Nagarjuna, I have still like many things have to experience, and experience is not very time and space bounded, and Nagarjuna left with the people, maybe many other models will get into Sunyata, and many more things will come in terms of your experience, and that I agree with Nagarjuna.
Well, let us move to Professor Srivastava when he wants to say something. Final words, sir.
I didn't understand that.
Sir, how do you take the entire scheme? How do you see this, sir? Professor Srivastava.
Sir, one more thing. In words of Iqbal, I would like to say, फलसफे के बहस के अंदर खुदा मिलता नहीं, कि डोर को सुलझा रहा हूँ पर सिला मिलता नहीं. But the very thing, as it is said in the Upanishads, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman, Buddha also says, everyone is potential Buddha. And it is our duty to realize the Buddha in ourselves. And the second stage is Bodhisattva. He takes his birth only to help the entire sentient being become a Buddha or the Bodhisattva. So this is the final thing. And we cannot equate the epistemological position with the metaphysical one. And in comparing all these things, what happens, a lot of problem arises. As I have said, कि फलसफे के बहस के अंदर खुदा मिलता नहीं, कि डोर को सुलझा रहा हूँ पर सिरा मिलता नहीं. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Avinash sir. Well, thank you, very nicely said. Well, no more questions, no more discussion. Well, one thing I wish to have from Dr. Jayanti Madam, if a student is asked, as Professor Das pointed out, say a one-line answer for what is Sunyata. Okay, so how to deal with this?
Sunyata is pragya, highest wisdom. I'll just say that. It's a highest wisdom, disciplined life, okay, moral values. That's what Sunyata is. Acceptance, accommodation, respect others, freedom to explore, but respect, dignity, peace, unity, harmony. That all Sunyata is.
Okay. Thank you, madam. So it will make a reference to what you said and the philosophy of no, sir, because we are moving and this will not end.
Wisdom, sir, free from ego, free from
Sir, Pragya has also the stages. If you happen to go to Sila, Samadhi and Pragya, it is very categorically said in the Sanyukta Nikaya, Sile Patithayo Naro Sapayu, Chittang Payancha Bhavayan, Atapi Nipike Bhikkhu, Su Ime Vistejatan. Now, what happens? You start your Shila and then Samadhi, but you will have to be well. Seal and Samadhi goes, Seal and Pragya goes hand in hand. You have the Karma's Pragya, and from there you are guided and you are guiding your morality there, and thereafter you come to the stage of Samadhi, and then the transcendental Pragya emerges thereafter that, and that's why it is said in Dhammapada, Yoga ve jayate bhuri, ayoga bhuri sankhya. So what happens? Pragya is there with you. You have taken birth. In the previous birth, whatever you have learned, that is called pragya, and you are working, you have started your work with that. And in the light of that karmaj pragya, your ethics and moral activities starts. And thereafter, when you are established and perfected the pragya and sila as well, you go to the samadhi, and then finally what happens after 4 jhanas, arupa jhana and rupa jhana and arupa jhana, the pragya emerges. So we cannot say very loosely that it is pragya. Pragya has different shades and meanings, and it is also contextual. You starts with pragya and end with pragya. In between, the sila and samadhi come, and all with this, because sile patithayo naro sapayo, because panya is not differentiated from sila. It is always with you. It is from with it arises with your birth because of your earlier knowledge, and ends with your nirvana because of his earned knowledge in this life. This is how the pragya can be described. We cannot say pragya in an ultimate thing. This is pragya. Pragya has so many steps and so many stairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Srivastav, sir. I should thank Professor Jayanti Madam for making a lot of work on Sunyata. She has tried to justify a stand. Well, I think we cannot mix two philosophies together. Well, she is more truthful to say the Buddhist model, and she sees what Professor Das was trying to point out is that the Advaitic model where he sees the reality as full of everything. It's something complete. Okay, that's where I think she doesn't. Jayanti Madam doesn't refute that, but she's saying that Nagarjuna, he's keeping those things aside, but he's having a focus on something other while making a reference to Sunyata, where he tries to see everything with reference to the Samriti Satta. I don't know. Keeping aside the Paramarthika Sasta, I don't know. So maybe that's the position. I don't know. Finally, the last line, not so described, last line, let me have from Jayanti madam. Last line, again.
Sir, already Nagarjuna I have given you many slokas. He has already established his position. Sunyata is something, is a kind of Pratitya Samutpad. Sunyata is Nirvan. Sunyata is Bodhisattvahood. As Professor Avinash sir also has given that it is a kind of moving from journey from empirical to transcendental. And there is a continuity is there from the Samriti Satya to Paramartha Satya, taking your karma into account. It's not a very easy startup that I said and people work. And because all these kind of whatever they are in the earlier Buddhism stand, Maitreyi, Karuna, Metavabhana, Karuna and Mahakaruna, the centricity of the Bodhisattvahood. And that is Karuna. When I said it is not an ordinary word. So like in Buddha, in case of Vedanta, when we use the word Brahma, so it's not the same way here also. It is a journey from transcending ourselves from the narrowness. That is what he is looking probably. Okay, and narrowness to a kind of broader acceptance in our mental level, because mental construction is very essential. Bhava is very essential to create that kind of state of prajna. And probably if I am able to convince the others, if I first have to experience myself as a bodhisattva, I have to reach to that state, then only I can explain that state. And even if I explain, then people will not, because they have not experienced. Okay, so that is because one word and one line, I will say Sunyata is Pratitya Samutpada, conditionality, coexistence, interdependence, interrelatedness. When we use the word interdependence, interrelatedness, that is probably missing. Okay, and which is very difficult, and that is can be brought out through pragya. Interrelated, घर में नहीं है, बाहर में नहीं है, friends में नहीं है, institution में नहीं है, where we are working, what we are saying. So it's a kind of conditionality which we have to create, taking, because we are not separate from others. That we have to realize. Essential dependence. He is using the word. He is giving so many things. Clarity he is saying. Only thing is that you may accept him as Advait in form, or you may accept him in terms of Advaya Bhadapa. That is up to you. But this essential conditionality, we are not there. We have so much of ego, false ego. So that creates so much of problem in the society. And can be, as I said in the beginning, my idea is that I see any philosophy positivism, and that positivism is very essential to work for the developmental model. It's very essential to have a broader mindset. Narrow, that is what the Hinayan's views are. And that's why they are looking for a different model where might be all taken together. Asti view, Upanishad, Vedanta, Upanishad and Jainism, Buddhism, Charvak, sabhi koi ek saath kaam kar sakta hai. Will that be possible? No, because we have, why? Because we don't want to leave our positions. And Nagarjuna is saying, don't leave your position also. Be there what you are. Only thing, accept me. And by acceptance, we broaden ourselves and get something. If I accept you, something that means there is a self-satisfaction. I have accepted you. I have accepted others. And that's what Nagarjuna is looking for. Bodhisattva model is that only. Say, spread the Karuna, Mahakaruna. It is a form of engaged Buddhism, which the word is coming of now. Is that removing the limitations, boundaries, we can come together, which was there and was not there even Buddhism. There are so many schools. Why so many schools? So many oppositions. We can't reach. So then there is a developmental.
It's a very nice response. Well, Sunyata is something that cannot be explained. One has to search oneself, and it lies in elevating to the state of that bodhisattvahood. Thank you very much, madam, for the last line. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, let us move to Dr. Kailash Chandra Mahana sir for proposing a vote of thanks. I should personally thank Jayanti madam and Avinash Srivastav sir,
Thank you so much.
sir and Pramod Das sir for initiating such beautiful discussion. Over to Professor Dr. Mahana for proposing formal thanks. Over to Dr. Mahana.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dr. Rao. Really, it is a great session for all of us. And Professor Jayanti has given a very brilliant presentation today. And today, she has shown her patience to listen and respond to all the learning viewers. And the courage that she has shown today is really praiseworthy. So I don't find in words how to offer her gratitude and how to give my reaction, my response towards her courage in responding to all the learning viewers. And she has tried to justify her stand in spite of all kinds of comment and observations till the end. And at last, she has given that concept of Sunyata as envisaged by Nagarjuna is a developmental matter, and it is for having a broader mindset and all the things that she has given to justify. I congratulate Dr. Jayanti, Professor Jayanti for this and to make this evening session meaningful and memorable also. With this, I offer my gratitude to Professor Avinash Srivastav, Professor Pramod Kumar Das, Professor Ranjit Ghosh, Professor Dr. K. Omanan Rao, and others for their observation and for enhancing the knowledge of the viewers and all others are connected with this Sunday webinar. And today, Professor Pramod Kumar Das is the person who has created a stand for further argument, for further discussion. And Professor Jayanti has tried to justify her own stand from Nagarjuna's point of view till the end. And for this, I offer my gratitude to the speaker and to the question raisers and to the participants present in this Sunday webinar. Gratitude to all. Over to Professor Pramod Kumar Das to end the session.
Thank you, Dr. Mahana, to coordinating the session and also having your observations. So over to Professor Das for winding up the session.
Thank you all. So this is time to end this session, and we are really grateful to Professor Sahoo. The real dialectical spirit is we should argue, we should go with disagreement, we should have that spirit, and that is philosophy. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I learned so many things. I must congratulate you that you are doing such a sincere work, and your team. I must congratulate. I must thank Professor Avinash for guiding, and all of you. Like, I am really so grateful. I can't express this, and that is called indescribability in Nagarjuna. That's where.
Earlier, I too was in Delhi University Buddhist Studies Department, and Professor Harshankar Prasad is very good friend of mine. So I had been the student of Mahesh Tiwari Shastri and Professor K.K. Mittal during my research.
I would love to listen from you. This.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
sir. Thank you, everyone.
And Professor Jayanti. Professor Jayanti, salute for your justification and for your courage.
That it has come from you all. I'm so grateful.
Madam,
Thank you.
Madam has Shraddha for philosophical discussion.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, she continued 2 sessions, last Sunday and this Sunday.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yes. This is the true spirit of philosophical discussion. Anyway, so now this meeting is declared closed. Thank you all.